Hi there and welcome. I am glad you are with me today. Today we are going to be talking about the business of iridology, and we're going to be answering some of those questions that you may have been wondering about, but didn't know who to ask, right? And so I'm going to encourage you also, if you've got additional questions, please type them into the chat box. And time permitting, and if they're on topic for us, I will do my very best to include them into the presentation today. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about iridology and a lot of misconceptions about how to use it. We may be touching on some of those as well, but I'm just really wanting to focus today on the business of iridology, how to incorporate iridology, why I do it the way I do, how to be successful with it. So if that sounds good, that's great. I'm also going to encourage you to drop frequent comments into the chat box. We are always a very small group. I mean, when you think about, these are geared towards holistic health professionals or health professionals. So that's already a small group of the world population. And from there, we're looking at people or talking with people who are interested in iridology, which is like an even smaller subset. And so we have very small groups here. And you will find that the more you comment in the chat box, the more you engage with me, the more you answer my questions, the more you're going to get out of me. If I feel like everybody's falling asleep, then I will probably just skim the surface and we'll be done early. So totally up to you how this plays out. I do want to take a moment to introduce myself just before we begin, so you will understand why I can answer these questions with confidence and why my answers to these questions are valid. First and foremost, I've been in the holistic healing world since 1979. So I don't know how old you are. For some of you, that might be older than you are, but I've been in this for a long time. I've seen a lot of changes over the years. And like many holistic health practitioners, I got into this because I had my own health problems that weren't being addressed by the medical world. And I wanted a better answer. I wanted answers that I would have some control over, answers that I could implement. I wanted to be empowered. And so that is why I got into holistic healing. In all those years that I've been in this industry, I've designed and taught many, many courses. And I've written many books that are all self-published and out of print. So they're not available anywhere. They were very small runs. Books on herbs and pregnancy and children and iridology and kinesiology. And actually, the iridology textbook is still available, but it's only available to my students because it's a digital format. I've taught so many different kinds of courses to do with herbs and nutrition and iridology and wellness, and again, pregnancy and children. It's just teaching is a passion of mine. And my students will all tell you that what I love most about teaching is answering questions. I love answering questions. Questions tell me my students are processing the information. And so again, if you've got questions as we're going, please drop them into the chat box here. I am a master herbalist, a natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and I'm also a certified iridology instructor. Now you'll notice these badges you see on your screen from the International Iridology Practitioners Association, say January 2022 to January 2024. That makes it sound like I've only been at this for 2 years. IPA makes all of its certified instructors and all of its certified iridologists update their credentials every 2 years, and they reissue badges every 2 years. And so I've been a certified iridologist for many, many decades, and these are just my most recent badges from IPA. Interesting, level 1, 2, and 3 with iridology. Levels 1 and 2 are required to become a certified comprehensive iridologist. Level 3 is a level that was just added 2 years ago. And I was one of the first 3 people to certify as a level 3 instructor. There are now only 8 of us in the world. So that's kind of a fun fact. So in our time together today, I'm going to be answering some of the most common questions that I get asked about iridology, about the business and the practice of iridology. And again, I encourage you, if you have a question or a comment, I'd love you to drop it in the chat box, not in the Q&A, but in the chat box, so that I can address those concerns for you, or so that I can chuckle at your comments if you're making a little funny comment or whatever. If you're interested in looking for an iridology course, then there will be more details later on in our session together today. We're not going to dive into it in great detail. If you already have an anatomy and physiology class course under your belt, and you're looking to add iridology as a modality, and you're looking for a course and an instructor, then I do invite you to use this URL that's here, tinyurl.com/dynamic-iridology. And I'm just going to copy and paste that into the chat box. That will, using that link will enable you to set up a time to chat with me one-on-one, to talk about what your goals are, what your background is, and to give you information about the course so that you can decide if this is the right course for you and if it's the right time for you to do the course. All right, it's not a high pressure sales pitch. It's really a mentoring call for us to determine what is good for you, right? I don't want students in my course who feel like they've been coerced, because they're never good students. Their heart isn't in it. I'm looking for people whose heart is in this, and I want to support them in their journey. All right, so again, we're not going to be doing enrollment stuff here on this, because that's not what you're here for. And if you're interested in more information, just use that URL and let's have a conversation. All right, so let's start answering questions. Let's just jump right in on this. How does using iridology with my clients benefit my clients? And how does it help me in my business? Iridology is the most powerful assessment technique I've ever seen. And why I say that is because when you do iridology the way I teach it to you, it's not a crystal ball. Now, you've probably seen some people on social media who will look at an iris photo and they will start pronouncing all the things that are wrong. And then they will give a long list of things that need to be worked on without ever having a conversation with the owner of those eyes. I'm going to tell you that that is not the most effective way to do this. You will notice that when people post like that, whoever posted the eyes will always pick out one thing. Oh yeah, that's so me, right? And the rest of the things were unimportant. What that tells you is that one thing that resonated was likely the thing that that client was seeking help for. Truly, when they look at it, if you were to ask them, what are the things that you want help with? What are your health concerns? What are your symptoms right now? They'll give you that list. And when you understand anatomy and physiology, which is why I require my students to have that before they come into my program, when you understand anatomy and physiology, and you understand iridology and how all of the iris markings work together, how they link together to tell you a story about this client's health potentials, now you can laser in and ask your client specific questions that you might not have thought of before. They might not be obvious questions, but the eyes will guide you in that. And then you can create a specific protocol for that client. And when you know how to do this, it means that your protocols are very succinct. They're very focused. They're very easy for your clients to follow. They're not these great long lists that you see on social media. It also is helpful because you're able to get your client assessment and the protocol designed in under 75 minutes. I know so many holistic health professionals who see the client, gather information, then go off on their own time to do the assessment, write a fancy report, create a protocol, write a fancy paper for that, and bring that back to their client, every one of them will tell you they're not getting paid for that assessment and program creation time. When you do iridology the way I teach it, you will be doing your assessment and program creation during your paid appointments. No more unpaid homework for you. So iridology benefits my clients because it saves me time. It saves them time. It gets them started on a program the very first day they meet me. It helps me laser that program very specifically to their needs. It gives me a deeper understanding of who they are and how they're put together. And from there, what kind of a protocol will work better for them than other protocols. And in all of that, because it saves me so much time and it helps me to incorporate everything I know about nutrition and herbology and flower essences and aromatherapy and lifestyle things, it helps me to really create programs that are useful for my clients, right? And I really love that because I can listen to my clients and I can hear in what they're saying, what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And so I can often create programs around those boundaries that will get them results. So that is very, very beneficial. No cookie cutter programs here. People are always saying, well, what would be the protocol you would use in this situation? And there might be some things that I would commonly do, but that doesn't mean it's a protocol because I don't ever have a cookie cutter program. So how does that sound? Does that sound like it's something that would be of benefit to you to be able to assess your clients quickly and accurately, literally create a deeper rapport and create protocols for them all in under 75 minutes? If that sounds like it would be helpful for you, let me know in the chat box. Just give me the word helpful. There are a lot of different schools of thought when it comes to iridology. And that means that there's a lot of conflicting information out there. Have you noticed there is conflicting information? If you've noticed that there's conflicting information out there, give me conflict in the chat box. Let me know in the chat box that you have seen the conflicting information. Some people say when you do the right herbs, you can change the eye color, you can get rid of pigments. Some people say pigments mean toxicity. Some people say that pigments are a genetic trait. Some people, it's just, there's so much different information out there. So I'm often asked, which ones have I studied? Now, I've studied iridology in the Bernard Jensen style. That's where I started. My actual teacher in that style had studied face-to-face with Dr. Jensen a couple of times. And I learned some Rayid iridology, which is the emotional iridology, from a local instructor. Her name was Chris Smith. She has since passed away. And she studied with the founder, Denny Johnson, right? And so I've got that. And then I was privileged to be able to learn constitutional iridology from Harry Wolf and Bill Cardona. And that is where I have ended up. That constitutional is my happy place. And this is my good place. Constitutional is the primary one. Rayid is my secondary one. But here's how I ended up with that. Now, back when I learned Jensenian, again, I learned from someone who'd studied with him a couple of times, and then I went on to take further courses from other Jensenian instructors. And I finally got to the point with the Jensenian where I thought, oh yeah, I want to do a course. I want to get certified. So I checked out this course I'd heard about, and they said, yes, it's a certification program. I now know that there are better questions to ask. And so I talked a couple of my colleagues into flying to another city and having hotel for 3 nights and doing this program with me. But by the end of the first day, I knew that this was going to be a wash. It was not going to be great. And I knew that because the instructor was teaching about something, I don't remember what it was, And I'd been looking at eyes now for like 8 or 9 years. So I was comfortable looking at eyes. And there was a particular marking in this one eye that he had shown up on the big screen. And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "I don't see what you're looking at." So I went right up to the screen and I framed the marking with my hands and I said, "What does this mean?" And other students went, "Oh, yeah, that's interesting. What does that mean?" And the instructor said, "I don't see what you're looking at." Huh. Well, just shortly after that, I had the opportunity to begin studying constitutional iridology using some VHS videotapes that I purchased from Bill Cardona and Harry Wolf. And I was looking at some iridology photos that I had taken of one of my clients, and there was something I didn't understand. So it was late on a Friday evening, and I'm thinking, I've got a phone number. I'm just going to phone them and, I'll get an answering machine. Maybe they'll call me back later. So I phoned and somebody picked up the phone. I was surprised. And I said, "Hello, is Bill Cardona there?" And he said, "Yes, this is Bill." And I said, "Bill, this is Judith Cobb. You don't know me." He went, "Oh, yeah, I do. I see the articles you write for Stephen Horn's Nature's Field. I love your stuff." And I went, "That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that." I said, "But I've got a question about iridology. I'm looking at some photos." Now, this is pre-internet days. I could not quickly or easily send him this photo. So I start describing what I'm seeing on these photographs using what I've learned from these videotapes. And Bill said, "Oh, well, do you see this other thing?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Well, if you did, you would want to think about the assessment in this direction." Okay. And he said, "Well, do you see this other thing?" And I said, "Yeah, I see that." And he said, "Well, then you need to take your assessment in direction number two." And I thought, he can't even see these photos, but he knows what I'm looking at. I was so impressed with the fact that he could mentor me over the phone without seeing the image that I was absolutely sold. So, how do I include iridology in a client session? This is a question that many of my students ask, and we do a lot of mock-up sessions in the format of our course. A client comes in for the first appointment. "Hi, hello, how are you?" Have them fill out a release form. And then I ask them, "What would you like my help with?" And they give me the shopping list. From there, I want to ask some basic questions about diet and lifestyle and surgeries and medications they've had or that they're on, and what are the supplements they're currently taking. And there might be a few others, like, what do you do for physical activity? What do you do for stress relief? How high is your stress? Things like that. Then I take photographs of their eyes. I do have a camera that does that for me, which is great. And then I upload those photos immediately to my computer so that we can have their eye photos open in a large format so my client can see what I'm looking at. When I am assessing their eye, I am very specifically looking at the eye in the context of the problems they have asked for help with. Now, I'm also thinking, I call it the shopping list, with their shopping list of problems. How are these connected? How are these connected? Because it's never that there's a standalone symptom. There's always 4 or 5 symptoms. And when you understand your anatomy and physiology, you can see how those things are all connected. So I'm looking for iris markers that teach me about the genetic makeup of my client to help me understand why my client has these symptoms and to trace back to find the root cause. From there, we create the program. Sometimes I need to give them something, maybe a herb that will make them more comfortable while we are doing the core foundation work to begin to correct the problem, to bring balance back into their system. And in doing so, we are able to, again, let the client know that they've been heard, that I understand their problem, and that I am working on that problem with them. How do I market iridology as a service? This is a huge question. And we're not going to go into great detail here. I mean, I've spent easily, probably over the years, $100,000 learning marketing. And so when we're talking about marketing iridology, this is something that I do help my students with, that I help to mentor them on. In the scope of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course, we have additional and included mentoring sessions that we call office hours. And in those office hours, we go into details about marketing. So I might have one student who is opening her own clinic, and she's wondering, how do I market this? I might have another student who's interested in teaching workshops. How do I market this? I might have another student who likes to do trade shows. How do I market this? And so I coach them through their individual needs of marketing. But marketing has changed a lot in some ways, and it has not changed much in other ways over the past 4+ decades. What we know now is that there is a lot of competition, but the market is not saturated if you know how to get your message out there. Most people that you speak with won't actually know what iridology is, so you need to start with educating them. You need to find a way to attract them to your website or your Facebook page or your Instagram page, to where you can educate them about what iridology is and the benefits of having iridology assessments on perhaps an annual basis. So you want to start where you're at, figure out who your clientele is, figure out where they hang out, and from there, craft your marketing. So you want to market iridology based on who your target market is, who your ideal client is, and how you can help them. And again, we do a lot of work with that in our office hours. Why do I love constitutional iridology? Why did I actually walk away from the other style, from the Jensen style? And I'm not saying that the Jensenians are bad. I'm just saying it's the constitutional has research. It's got ongoing research. It's continuing to develop. It's different now than it was 30 years ago. When I first learned it, there were some things that were still being researched, and now as we are learning more, we are finding out more, and it's developing, and I love that. I love that it has continued to evolve. Whereas, when I see the Jensen people talking, for instance, they're saying the same things they were saying 45 years ago when I first started out in this. Nothing has changed there. And so this should be an evolving science. We should be doing research. I also love constitutional, probably because of my instructors. Bill Cardano was my primary instructor. Harry Wolf was on the videotapes that I studied. I've studied face-to-face with Bill Cardano twice now, but they continue to support me even after 3 decades. I can reach out to them with questions and they will answer me. And I love that kind of support. And that's why I support my students and my graduates the way I do. How do you find a good iridology instructor? I would encourage you to try to find examples of how they teach. Maybe they've got YouTube videos. Maybe they host little webinars and little mini classes on Facebook or on Instagram or somewhere like that. Listen to them and see if they teach in a way, number one, that makes sense to you, and number two, that meets your learning style. This is important because they may be able to spew a lot of information, but they may not be able to explain it very well. They may not be good at answering questions, right? And so you want to make sure that you've got someone with whom you can communicate well. You also want to make sure that they are not teaching fluff. So a good way to verify this is, are they certified as an iridologist? But more than that, who are they certified by? And more than that, are they a certified instructor? Now, I say that because you'll find a lot of people out there will teach courses and they will offer you a certificate in the end. And that certificate says you have jumped through that instructor's hoops. That's all. That may or may not mean anything. Now, truly, iridology in most of the world is an unregulated industry, which means there are no standards across the board. But I have found that as I watch and listen to people who are teaching their own curriculum and saying they offer certification, that it's often a very shallow curriculum. So I think it's a really good idea to ask them, if it's a certification program, are they certified as an instructor and not through their own program? Doesn't that seem a little self-serving? If I've created a program and I'm offering certification and I'm certified in my own program, but nobody else has, there's no other standards, just my standards that I've met. So I really encourage you, do some research, figure out who certified them and maybe what are their professional affiliations as an iridologist, right? And just make sure that what you're getting is someone who has maybe had some peer reviews done on their teaching and on their curriculum. Can iridology be learned well without a face-to-face course? So I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. The first is, can you learn iridology from a textbook? You can learn the basics, but you'll never be able to go deep. Can you learn it from pre-recorded content? Yeah, depending on the course, it might take you deeper, but you've got a drawback in both of these cases, the textbook and the pre-recorded, and that is you don't have anyone that you can ask questions of. And I assure you, there will be questions. You'll read something, you'll think you know what it means, and then at 2 a.m. you're going to wake up and go, bang, what did that really mean? And when you go back to it, it's going to be confused and tangled in your brain. And you're going to want to have an instructor that you can ask questions of. Now, does a face-to-face course mean you have to be present in the same room? Or does it simply mean, is there a way to have live interaction, for example, over Zoom? And the answer is, you can learn well in a face-to-face course. You will have many other expenses that go with that, but you can learn very well in a course that is online, taught by a live instructor with live interaction that offers extra support and opportunities for you to ask questions and to get answers in real time. So yes, iridology can be learned well without an in-person in the same room course. But in order to learn it well, you do need to have that live interaction. So even an online experience with live sessions online can be very, very powerful. What support is there after training for when you've got business questions and help with difficult cases? Well, I don't know what other teachers offer. I do know what I offer. I offer ongoing support, and that is the office hours. So, for example, if you've completed your coursework with me, whether or not you decided to continue on to certify with the International Iridology Practitioners Association, you will always be welcome as one of my former students or current students. You will always be welcome at our office hours mentoring sessions and in our social media group, our private group on the MeWe platform. Now, this is really important. This is really important. And I say this because I have had students enroll in my program who have completed courses with other instructors. They've even been certified by those instructors. When they went back to those instructors and said, I have a question, whether it was about business or a difficult case, the instructors have said, you will figure it out. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't feel good to me. And so I offer long-term, ongoing support. And really, my commitment is that support will continue for as many years as I am teaching. So we have office hours and we have the MeWe platform that give you at least, well, we is daily, correct? And office hours is twice every month, where you can present cases, ask questions, and get guidance and clarification. I don't know of any other instructor that offers support, as much extra support outside of class sessions for as long as I do. Is it important to get certified? What does it mean to be certified? Okay, so is it important to get certified? Well, to your clients, probably not. Most of them typically don't know enough about iridology to understand what certification means. Most of them are intrigued by iridology, but they know so little about it, they will rarely ask for your credentials. To you, is it important to you? Well, that depends on what you want to do with iridology. Certification is regulated only by the association that grants it. Again, for most of the free world, there is no government regulation of iridology. And so you need to decide whether the certification is important to you or not. If you're using iridology in a clinical setting, I would suggest to you that you may need to have errors and omissions insurance, depending on what other things you're doing. So, for example, if you're doing nutrition coaching or herbal coaching or anything that's consumable or anything where you're touching your client, you may need to have errors and omission insurance, and they will likely require you to provide proof of training and current certification if you would like to have iridology included in your insurance package. So you would need to check with your own business insurance provider to see if that is a requirement with them. For some of my students, certification is about a sense of completion, that to them it marks the end of the process. And that's valid, totally valid. Some people really like seeing, like the feeling of seeing their name on a certificate. That's valid. There's no wrong answer here. If you think, oh, I don't want to put in the effort, I just want the information, but I don't want to put in the effort to become certified, that's fine. That's fine. I don't push my students either way. I support them in their decision. So there's no wrong answers there. Again, what does it mean to be certified? That means you have jumped through the hoops of the certification board. So with the International Iridology Practitioners Association, it means you have completed a certain amount of practicum work, and it means you have passed their final exam, their certification exam, with certain grades, specific grades or better, and then you are certified, right? And so, and that certification needs to be maintained, which means CEUs annually. What does it take to be successful as an iridologist? Well, obviously it takes studying, and it takes being able to take correction. We do a lot of practice in the scope of our classwork, and that is where I am able to determine whether the concepts that we are discussing have landed well for you and they're making sense. And so as we practice, if I determine that that doesn't sound like this made sense, it gives me the opportunity to evaluate, to figure out where is the disconnect and how can I reteach this to make sure that we get a strong connection. It takes being willing to learn new concepts, and if you already have studied some iridology, to probably let go of some old concepts. It requires that you have the ability to explain things clearly and in plain English to your clients, and we practice that in class. We practice those communication skills. It also will require that you have some other modality that will mesh well with it. So maybe you have nutrition under your belt, or herbology, or flower essences, or aromatherapy. Really, really important to have a modality. Without the modality, your assessment is of no value. I want you to think of it in terms of you've got a car and your car's making a funny noise and you know it's not the right noise. Your car doesn't make this noise. So you take it to the mechanic, thinking the mechanic will assess it and fix it. But you're taking it to a new mechanic and he runs all of his diagnostic tests, connects your car to the computer, whatever he needs to do. And he comes back and he says, yep, I know exactly what the problem is, but I don't fix cars. I only assess cars. You have to go down the road to Jim because he knows how to fix cars. And that's why you need a modality. Would you take your car to a mechanic who could not fix it as well, who had no clue, and who actually couldn't fix anything on a car? You wouldn't. And so you need to have the same perspective with your clients, that iridology is not a standalone science. In a clinical setting, it requires that you have modalities so that you can coach your clients the way they need to go in order to regain and reestablish their health. How can we take our iridology practice from a paid by the hour, financially limited business to a business that does not have an income cap? Because truthfully, if you're doing clinical work, you're being paid by the hour, and you can only make money as long as you are seeing clients. And we all love doing the one-on-one work. I love spending that time with my clients on an individual basis. I also know there's only so many hours in a day. And I know what my limits are for how many clients I can work with in a day and still have happy energy to keep going at it the next day. And so often we need to have a second stream of income. And so one of the things that I suggest as you're doing this is that if you're a herbalist, make your herbal products available to your clients. If you're an aromatherapist, or if you are a flower essence specialist, make those products available to your clients. That can be your second stream of income. Right? I find that my clients are very happy to purchase the herbal products that I recommend because they know I have already put that product line through the test, and that it's an excellent quality product, and it saves them having to go to the health food store and try to find something like what I've taught them about. And is it strong enough? Is it pure enough? Is it the right thing? And so most of them love that when we've created the program, I can provide it for them. And it means that if they've got a question or a concern a few days into the program or a few weeks in, they can reach out to me, and I know exactly what they're using. So I know exactly how to answer them and how to support them. So that could be a really useful way to go as well. Can I make a living doing iridology? Yes, you can, if you have a modality to go with it. So if you've got nutrition or herbology or aromatherapy or flower essences or some other modality that meshes well with iridology, yeah, you can make a decent living. If you don't have that modality, though, again, you're going to be being paid by the hour. That is going to limit your income, and that may make it not quite as viable. When I'm trained up, how will I know how much to charge? This is a common question. How much do you charge? That depends on the economy where you live, and it depends on your training and what other services you offer. So for example, the baseline is typically regarded, once you are completely trained and certified, the baseline is considered to be that you start with charging the same that you would be charged for a 1-hour massage. So if a 1-hour massage in your town goes for $120, then a 1-hour iridology appointment, it's suggested, would be $120. Now, that might be true when you're just starting out, but if you're 10 years into this, you've got some expertise, you've got some credentials, you've got some street cred, if you will, you're developing a reputation, then I suggest that you should be charging more than that, right? Because you are bringing more to the table. If you're bringing 3 different modalities plus iridology, you are worth more to your client than if you bring in one modality. Does that make sense? That the more knowledge and training you have to draw on, the more valuable you are to your client. And a lot of my people are uncomfortable charging what they're actually worth. And so we can talk about different ways to work with that, either to work with your mindset or to work with the amount you charge and still earn enough to pay your bills and have a life. After I finish the training, where can I go to get business mentoring and help with difficult cases? Where can I go if I have questions? This depends on who your teacher was, right? Most teachers don't offer much, if anything, in the way of long-term support. As I mentioned earlier, I've had a lot of students that have already paid for courses elsewhere. They've been certified by other instructors. When they had follow-up questions a year, 2, 3 years down the road, the instructors would not help them. People who have trained under other iridologists, other instructors, often ask me if I will mentor them. And my answer is a very firm no. My students pay more for my course. My course is more expensive than most of the courses that are out there because I support my students better than most of the instructors that are out there. So when you enroll in a course, you want to make sure you know what you're getting beyond the actual instruction. Are you getting long-term mentoring? Will there be support 3 years down the road if you've got a question? You want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting. Really important to not be so self-assured that you think, "Ah, I won't have questions later on." And I say that because I still periodically come up with questions and I still send them to Bill Caradonna, and Bill Caradonna still answers them for me. Okay, so it's really focus on what are your goals and what are your needs. And you want to talk with instructors. Don't just enroll in a program that you see advertised online. Speak with the instructor. Get to know that instructor a little bit. See some examples of their teaching style and decide from there where you want to be. So if I become an iridologist, do I have to buy an expensive iridology camera? So back to that mechanics analogy. If your mechanic doesn't have the right tools to do the job, are you going to be impressed enough to take your car back to him again? So all of my students start and we practice taking photos with a smartphone. If you've got a fairly new smartphone, you can get decent iridology photos with that. They won't be perfect, but they will be definitely usable. They're a good place to start. Eventually, but not before you've finished your coursework, then and only then would I encourage you to look at buying a professional iridology camera setup. Now, I don't want you to be spending big bucks on anything, and I don't want you to be buying cheap equipment either, right? Because buying cheap equipment is going to be low resolution. You will not have control of the variables that you need to have control of to get the photos you need. So don't do that. Just start with your smartphone. And then when you have finished your coursework, particularly if you want to use iridology at a professional level in your clinic, then we'll talk about the kinds of cameras that are out there, which ones I have 2 different setups, which ones I like for what kinds of clients, what kinds of clients are you mostly working with, so which of the setups would be better for you. And we help you distill it down to the right setup for your practice. Having the right equipment makes you look more professional. It helps you earn respect. It gives clients confidence in your work, and it will make you feel more confident as well. Now, I additionally will, for each of my clients, I will print up a photo of their left eye and a photo of their right eye on my portable photo printer. And then I'll put a sticker on the back of it that has my name and contact information. And I give that to my clients at the end of their appointment, right? People have kept those photos for decades. It's funny how many of them bring them back. Clients come in for a few appointments, then they disappear for a while, and then they come back for a few appointments, then they disappear for a while. That's just the normal ebb and flow. But it's funny that after 10 or 15 years, when they're coming back, they'll say, look what I found in my cupboard. I was cleaning out my files the other day. Look what I found. And they bring it in. And, I've learned a lot of iridology, even in the last 5 years, because it's an evolving thing and my skills have developed. And so we can look at that original assessment that we did, because I used to write reports. We don't do that anymore. But we can talk about how things have changed in iridology, the deeper information we have. I'll take new photos and we will work from there with a fresh assessment. So do you have to have an expensive iridology camera? Not at the beginning. In fact, if I find you've bought one at the beginning, I'll be very disappointed. I will discourage you from buying one at the very beginning. Wait until you've at least finished your coursework before you purchase a camera. Now, my course is 20 weeks long. That gives you time to really learn iridology and to be practicing it, for you to begin advertising that you do iridology, to begin working with clientele so we know what are the types of clients you are attracting, and that will help us to distill down which type of camera would be best for you. Right, so I guide you through that as well. I don't just turn you loose and have you buy the cheapest thing on the planet. So the next dynamic iridology course is starting on November 1st. Again, it is only open to people who have completed a college level anatomy and physiology program. Right, this is really important. If you don't have that, I will not accept you into the course. I will mentor you and coach you. There's a course that I recommend to my students, and I'm not affiliated with the course in any way. I just know it's a good course. And so I send my prospective students there. They get their anatomy and physiology. When they've got that course done, they come back to me, and then we can talk about enrolling in the dynamic iridology program and getting them going with iridology. And so if you've got the A and P under your belt, give me a call, not a call, book a Zoom meeting. This is a Zoom meeting with tinyurl.com/dynamic-iridology is to schedule a Zoom meeting with me to talk about where you're at, what your goals are, and to decide whether dynamic iridology for the November 1st start date, for instance, is the right one for you. I thank you so much for being with me, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. I look forward to having you in one of my upcoming courses. Do take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.